Hello, I'm John Coleman from ApocatastasisInstitute, an institute for the humanities and alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. Today we're being joined by Professor Adam Myers, and we're getting through our Euclid's elements. We're making our way through the definitions, the propositions. Today, Proposition 21. And just one announcement before Adam guides us onto today's mathematics nugget, and that is an invitation to check out our course catalog. You can see Adam's write-up in that, his staff bio, as well as some of the classes he teaches, and of course, all of the classes we have here at the Institute. And with that being said, welcome, Adam. How have you been?
Oh, I'm hanging in there, trying to stay out of trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely. And uh, I will kick it over to you, sir, uh, this evening. So take it away. I'm going to cut the camera just so we free up some bandwidth, and you just guide me as you need to scroll along.
All right, sounds like a plan. All right, so this is going to be a something kind of like a lemma. We're kind of building up again to some more complicated theorems in the future, and this is going to connect to them. Basically, what we want to do is show that if you have some triangle and you make a triangle within that triangle is going to have some important properties. And by the way, when I say triangle within the triangle, I mean one that shares one of the legs. So as you can see in the image, if you look to the left a little bit, you'll see the triangle, or sorry, if you look down, scroll down a bit, you can see the kind of triangle we're here. So if you have this triangle ABC, and you create this triangle BCD, where you have that point in the center of the triangle, and you connect two of the vertices of the bigger triangle. That little triangle is going to have the property that the equivalent legs are going to sum to a smaller sum than the bigger triangle, but the angle is going to be bigger than the other triangle. So if you take BD plus DC, that is going to be smaller in length than BAAC. But the angle BDC is going to be bigger than the angle BAC. That makes sense. I kind of went through it kind of fast, so feel free to ask me to repeat that if there was any confusion. We good?
Yes, please do. Please do. And if there's ever an audio delay, it's just because it takes a second to turn on the mic again. But yeah, if you could just repeat that for us, Adam, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Sure, sure. So if you have a triangle, and using one of the triangle's sides, you create a triangle within the bigger triangle. That smaller triangle is going to have two corresponding sides whose sum is less than the equivalent sides of the bigger triangle. On the other hand, that angle made of those two smaller sides is going to be bigger than the angle of the bigger triangle. So if you look at in the image, the side AB added to the length AC of the bigger triangle is going to be a bigger sum than the equivalent sum of BD and CD. So those two sums are going to be different, and the bigger triangle is going to have the bigger sum. However, the corresponding angles are going to have the opposite relationship. The angle BAC is going to be smaller than the angle BDC. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you for that breakdown.
No problem, no problem. All right, so let's go ahead and go through the proof. This is a pretty straightforward proof, thankfully. Once we have our triangle, we're going to go ahead and select a dot D, and we're going to connect it with B and C to make this triangle BCD. All right, and then we're going to extend BD to BE. So DE is going to be part of the same line as BD, using modern geometries, using the modern geometric idea of a line. All right. Now, what we're going to do is use the proposition we proved 2 weeks ago, and therefore, since in any triangle the sum of two sides is greater than the remaining one, therefore in the triangle ABE, the sum of the two sides AB and AE are greater than BE. Okay? So BE is less than the sum of BA and AE. Okay? We're going to go ahead and add EC to each. Then the sum of BA and AC is greater than the sum of BC and EC. Okay? We're just extending the same idea. All right? And then we're going to go again, return to our previous position, our proposition. Since in the triangle CED, the sum of the two sides CE and ED is greater than CD, we're going to add DB to both. Therefore, the sum of CE and ED is greater than the sum of CD and DB. We're really just we're simply implementing the previous proposition multiple times. Feel free to have me repeat if there's any confusion. This might not seem very intuitive at first, but if you follow along with the proof, you'll see that each of these steps must necessarily be true, right? So if we go back to the first time we called for proposition 20, again, AB and AE, when you sum those together, they're going to have to be bigger than BE, because any two sides of a triangle is always greater than or equal to, or actually it's always greater than the third side. Okay, we proved that already. That has to hold. And we do the same thing when we consider CED. Right, when we consider that triangle. So first we talked about ABE, now we're talking about CDE. The sum of the two sides CE and ED must be greater than the side CD. And by adding DB to both, we simply get that CE and EB is greater than the sum of CD and BD.
Good, and
Okay.
so that's that for this proposition, is it, Adam?
But no, that's the meat of the proposition. It's a bit
Good.
eye-glazing a bit, and I wanted to repeat that to emphasize.
Got it.
We still got a little bit more left
Do I
to
need
go.
to
We do have the next part, so that's about the first half of the proof. The second half, what we do is
should I scroll down here, or you need it on
yes,
screen?
I would scroll down a bit. Yes. So
Okay.
all right. Now, as you can see, that common notion is being used now. But the sum of BA and AC, as we noted earlier, since it's greater than the sum of BE and EC, therefore the sum of BA and AC is much greater than the sum of BD and DC. All right? Because if if EB plus CE's length is greater than CD and DB, then obviously something that's bigger than CE and EB, aka BA and AC, we therefore conclude that BA and AC is greater when you sum them together than BD and DC. Now we're going to reference proposition 16 that we already covered. Since in any triangle, the exterior angle is greater than the interior of the and opposite angle. Therefore, in the triangle CDE, the exterior angle BDC is greater than the angle CED. Okay, we're moving on to the next part of that proposition. This probably could be broken up into two propositions, but here it is. For the same reason, however, in the triangle ABE, the exterior angle CEB is greater than the angle BAC. The angle BDC was proved greater than the angle CEB, therefore the angle BDC is much greater than the angle BAC. Again, this is just an implementation of proposition 16. This is probably going to require our audience to go through this a couple times to really grok what's happening. Everything here is just building on what we've already proved. If you trust all the prepositions up to this point, this proof makes sense. You can pretty straightforwardly follow it along. But I do recommend that if necessary, you go ahead and click those hyperlinks to the right there as you're going through these proofs, and just refresh the theorems that we used previously, because we're relying on you trusting that these theorems are true at this point. I hope that makes sense. And that should be the
Yes, yes, for sure. Thank you for that. So practice makes perfect, like you say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, and that should be it.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Adam. So between The Hobbit and June in our other series, and normalizing nudity, and having some cogitations on class structure and economics, certain topics that take up your day, besides holding down some jobs too, remarkably fertile clock that you fill out. Tell us some of the things that you can help us with tutoring here at Apocatastasis. What are some of the skill sets you have in that regard?
Well, I'm very familiar with teaching adult learners in particular. I mean, I do have some experience tutoring youngsters, but my main expertise is teaching adults. And so the main value that I can offer, particularly homeschoolers and parents who are trying to homeschool their children, is to teach the parent how to teach. That's more of my expertise, helping the parent have a better grasp of mathematics themselves to make it a bit easier to teach their kids. Not to an extreme degree, but decent competence and confidence. Nothing too extravagant.
Great, thank you for that insight there. And as the summer winds along, as I knock out jobs that have been building up for a long time, we will be having a presence on locals and some of these sites, and so we will have ways for people, especially with busy schedules and things, to plug into Adam, myself, so forth, as we go along in a way that's very accessible. And so you have to be a little bit creative there in terms of using the social media. So there's a lot going on curricula wise, and Adam is certainly part of that, as is Vandana and Dr. Fisher, Angela Malik, Hans Uter, and some other lights coming along soon enough. So little by little, it all comes together. But keep an eye on that locals outlet, and in the meantime, Adam, I will cut you loose to Conan and the dinner, but not before thanking you for making a few minutes to bring us up to date on Euclid and Proposition 21.
My pleasure. My pleasure.